Without delay. Thank you. The question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Parakura Horomia.
Tēnā koe. Ia koutou ngā uri o Ngati Whatua o Orakei, e mihi koe ana kia koutou. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou mo tō kahi te tae te kone, Sharon, koutou ngā mea pakeke. E tautoko tia tu te tūkaha o tupuna o tō pāpa mo te take nei. E whakaaro atu mo te tuku kōrero atu tātou minita Māori mo ngā puta waha tāhiu. E tika atu e rā whakaaro. Mai rāno e ki atu te karau e rā, a hako atu wehe, tahi atu tātou, hei whakatika te huarahi e haere tonu atu. Tērā no tōna whakaaro. He tino kōrero rangatira tērā, e mai te wā e mohi atu e tahi o tātou, te tino mahi maka, te tino mahi ngati o te karauna ki koutou o Orakei. Mo tēnā koutou. Mo rātou e rere atu, ngā mea pakake e kore e kone e mihi koana. Mihi koana ki te matua grant, me tō tātou tangata o te whare miere nei a Joe. Mo tōna kaha. Mihi atu ki a Joe. Ahako e kore e kone. Mai te tīmata o te pakanga, mai te wā e tai atu I kone he whakatikitika. Mr. Chair, I want to follow and support what the Minister of Māori Affairs has said, that this, in my mind, as much as everyone you can lay claim to being into having a special place in this country's history, but the Ngati Whatua to Orakei settlement is something that is etched in this country's history, for their ability to say no when the Crown in modern times, only 40-odd years ago, tried to confiscate the land, and that they maintain the expansive views of their water and their harbour amongst all the expensiveness that is built both in pastoral confines and houses of more wealthier people who have benefited from the confiscation is certainly something that we need to remember. And I think it is important that we talk about it. That, you know, in this country's history of recent time, these people stood in front of the police and said no. And the police under Crown's orders tried to continue to take the land. It was so rough in parts of their history, the Crown and people associated who burnt their marae down. And people forget to say that. And you have the Hammerheads restaurant and all go under the water and look at the place. I forget what it is, Dr. Stowe or Whale Watch Underground. All of that stuff that's been built. Great economic assets to the city of Auckland. Telecom, communication, as Morris knows, and Mr. Williamson knows about all of this. He knows about it, and I'm proud of him for the effort that he's going to put in to put this right. Because this is quite a light list here of this correction. It is only one part. And I want to commend the chair of our committee, the Honourable Tau Henare, who is starting to grow both in vigour and ability as every time he stands up and makes a speech. Because he led the select committee well. Mr. Chair, he led the select committee well against a whole lot of tensions. And the narrow neck situation was fueled by people who played redneck ideals. It was fueled by mistrust and misunderstanding. And if you read the settlement, there is a lot of goodwill from a people who stood in front of the police and said no in relation to sharing it with everybody. And the debate about why they should have commercial nuances tied to this settlement makes the mind boggle. Because as I said, all the development below them, where the whare was burnt, all the property that was taken off them, Mr. Speaker, does one thing. It creates incredible revenue for a whole lot of people to ensure that their families have a solid economic base. And it's marginal in relation to doing that. And that's why this settlement is really critical to this nation. It's like the king with no clothes. It's no good us standing here and making believe that it never happened. It happened in modern history. We dared to do that. We dared to talk as Crown agents to suggest that we could take it off them again. And have they managed it wisely? The assets that they have got, whether it's the railways and travel stations, yes, they have. And Minister Sharples and Minister Morris, they know that. They know that full well. And they've got to harden up on doing a better deal to add to this. Tēnā koe, Minister. This isn't about constituency issues. This is about a nation's nawe and a nation's haki-haki. It's a scab that has festered. And the settlement package is all of that. You know, the interesting thing about Naranek I worked out, the Pākehās, the Māoris and the Asians weren't allowed to walk down the side of it when it was in the armed forces' hands, I think. Ngati Whatua are quite open for people to traverse it as long as they respect and understand who's there. And I want to commend the effort. Both of those people who came before the Select Committee to say that it shouldn't happen, and those who came there and wanted to support the settlement. And there were Pākehās who came into that room and supported the settlement. And I take my hat off to them. And there were people, and some Māoris, who didn't want it to happen. So I want to commend the negotiators, the ministers, for getting this to this end. The vesting of the Pourewa Creek Conservation Area, the redress over the volcanic cones on Tāmaki Isthmus and the Hauraki Gulf Islands throughout there recognise their mana and their rangatiratanga. Protocols and letters of introduction to facilitate and strengthen relationships between Ngati Whatua o Orakei and the Crown, museums and the Auckland Council. The consideration of the Māori Affairs Select Committee took that all into account, and we came back with these recommendations. Mr. Speaker, these protocols, I've said it on nearly every claim, this is one of the most important set of protocols that has to be enacted. And Minister Williamson, the Minister of Labour over there, the Minister of Māori Affairs, and any other one over there who's trying to pretend they're a real minister, make sure that these things happen. Because the worst thing with these protocols is we say, yep, TPK, yep, MSD, yes, the Ministry of Economic Development, yes, the DOC thing, and they say, we signed, be happy, give us a big hākari o Orakei, and then they disappear. These are serious protocols, especially with this group. They need to be recognised, they need to be enacted, and they need to be monitored. They're not. And I know Mr. Williams knows a lot about monitoring because he's the communication person who's been saying that broadband's going everywhere. And it is important that the monitoring is done. Mr. Speaker, the relationship with the museums and the Auckland Council, well, there's a lot to be done there with the Auckland Council. And I'm not too sure how central government enacts and imbues within the writings of and the legislation of the local authority that they do what they're told. Now, I want to mihi to the Mayor, Len Brown, and hope he's taking time out of a cup of tea watching this, and suggest that we need to be serious about correcting that. This is an important settlement for my time in here, that it doesn't just recognise the deal that's been struck for now on these few areas, it puts right, in part hopefully, what was a dastardly deed enacted by us. We've done it in good faith, and it's in good faith that I close, Mr. Speaker, and suggest that there is due recognition given, and that these protocols are managed seriously. Kia ora tātou.
Honourable Morris Williamson.
Ka tangi ta titi, ta kane, ka tangi ta kāka, ka tangi hoki ahau.